She returned, wearing another Alpha's mark. The Alpha King declared war to win back his true mate. The scent hit him first. Not hers. Not anymore. Kane Ashgrove stood at the top of the stone steps. The whole pack gathered behind him in their finest clothes, waiting for the delegation from the Northern Territories to arrive. There were trumpets. There were banners. It was the kind of ceremony he had grown tired of years ago. Then the carriage door opened, and Ilara stepped out. The wind carried something new beneath her perfume, something that made every wolf standing on those steps go completely still. Another Alpha's mark. It sat on her throat, still faintly silver at the edges, the way a new bond looks in its early months. Someone had claimed what used to be his. Kane's hands did not shake. That surprised even him. He had spent 3 years learning exactly how much control a person could hold before something inside them broke, and right now, watching her walk toward him wearing another man's mark, he was holding every bit of it. She stopped a few steps away. She was not the same girl who had disappeared from his territory without saying goodbye. She looked older around the eyes, stronger, in a way he could not quite name. Ilara. Her name felt strange in his mouth after 3 years of silence. Your Majesty. Her voice was formal and distant, as if he were nothing more than a stranger, as if he had not spent 2 years searching every territory between his land and the coast, hoping to find some sign that she was still alive. Something inside him wanted to shout. Instead, he stayed calm and searched her eyes for the truth. The bond between them, the one that was supposed to disappear if she had truly accepted another Alpha's mark, was not gone. It was faint, but it was there. He could still feel it, quiet and steady beneath the surface. She had not chosen this. Someone had forced her into it. He knew it the way he knew his own name. A true mate bond does not lie, even when the person wearing it pretends otherwise. But knowing something and proving it to the world were two very different things. Behind Ilara stood Alpha Draven of the North, smiling as if he already owned everything in sight. His people carried documents, an alliance agreement, and a wedding date already circled on the page. Draven stepped forward and offered his hand. We are eager to complete the alliance between our territories. Ilara has already learned to enjoy life in the north. The words were simple, but they carried a hidden threat. Kane did not take his hand. Instead, he looked at Ilara. He noticed the mark on her neck. He noticed how her fingers curled tightly into the fabric of her dress, a habit she had carried since she was 17, and trying to hide how upset she was. Enjoyed it, Kane repeated quietly. That's an interesting way to put it. For a brief moment, something shifted in Ilara's expression. It was not love, it was something else entirely. It was fear that he had already figured out the truth. He had. That night, the palace prepared a large hall for formal negotiations between the two territories. Kane, however, had different plans. He found Ilara standing alone on the east balcony, the same balcony where they used to watch the training grounds together as children, long before either of them understood what a mate bond truly meant. Out of the entire palace, she had chosen the one place that still reminded them of who they used to be before life became complicated. You should not be out here alone, she said without turning around. Draven does not like it when I don't care what Draven likes, Kane said. She finally turned to face him. Up close, the mark on her throat did not look like a bond built from love. It looked forced, almost like a scar pressed into her skin against her will. You are not truly bonded to him, Kane said. It was not a question. Her lips parted, as if she wanted to speak, but nothing came out at first. 3 years of untold struggles sat behind her silence. Then her expression hardened, and anger returned to her voice, familiar and almost comforting in its own strange way. You don't get to just appear and decide what's true for me. Your bond to me is still active, Kane said, stepping closer. I can feel it right now. Can you? Stop, she whispered. You disappeared for 3 years, Ilara. No message, no warning. I searched through 6 territories, terrified I would find you hurt somewhere, and instead, I find you here, engaged to a man whose smile never reaches his eyes. You don't understand what he would have done to your people if I hadn't. She stopped herself too late. The silence that followed was heavy with meaning. Finish what you were going to say, Kane said gently. Her hands trembled. She looked down at them as though they belonged to someone else. He said he would burn the southern villages. He said it as calmly as if he were talking about the weather. I had 2 days to disappear and make it look like I had betrayed you, or watch innocent people suffer because of a war they had nothing to do with. There it was, the truth behind 3 years of silence, told in just a few sentences. It did not need to be explained further. Some truths simply needed to be believed. Kane's expression grew still and serious, the kind of stillness that usually comes before someone decides to take action. He has kept you for 3 years. He has kept a prisoner for 3 years, she said, her voice cracking for the first time since she had arrived. Not a mate, never a real mate. The bond would not allow it, no matter what he tried to force. She did not finish that thought either, and Kane did not push her to. By morning, Kane had already sent messages to his allies. By afternoon, 4 neighboring territories had responded, ready to support him. By evening, Alpha Draven walked into the negotiation hall, expecting diplomats and treaties. Instead, he found Kane standing at the head of the table, surrounded by a council of leaders, with an expression that left no room for discussion. There will be no alliance, Kane announced. There will be no wedding. Instead, I am declaring a formal stand against you, to protect and return my true mate. Every territory behind me has already agreed to support this decision. Draven's confident smile faded. She belongs to the north now. She agreed to this arrangement herself. She agreed to protect innocent lives from your threats, Kane said firmly. That is not the same as choosing you. That is fear, and I have 4 allied leaders here who are very interested in learning exactly how you forced her into this position. For the first time, Draven's eyes flicked toward the door, as if searching for an escape that no longer existed. Elara stood quietly in the corner of the room, one hand resting over the mark on her neck, as though she could already feel it beginning to fade now that the truth had finally been spoken aloud. She did not move toward Kane right away. She simply watched, unsure of what would happen next. But when their eyes met across the room, the bond between them pulsed gently, warm and unmistakably alive. Kane understood then that this fight had never truly been about winning a war. It was about undoing 3 years of forced silence and finally giving Elara the chance to choose her own future. In the days that followed, Draven's territory faced growing pressure from the allied leaders who had gathered at Kane's side. Word spread quickly of how Elara had been forced into her situation, and many who had once respected Draven began to question his leadership. Alliances that once supported him started to crumble as more details came to light. Elara remained in Kane's territory during this time, given space to breathe for the first time in years. She spent her mornings walking through the gardens she remembered from childhood, and her evenings sitting quietly with Kane, slowly rebuilding a connection that had never truly disappeared. I thought about you every day, she admitted one evening, as they sat together near the same balcony where the truth had first come out. Even when I could not show it, even when I had to pretend I didn't care. I never stopped looking for you, Kane replied, not for one single day. Elara looked down at the mark on her neck, which had grown fainter with each passing day. Will it ever fully disappear? It will, Kane said gently, because it was never real, not in the way that matters. Slowly, the pressure on Draven's territory grew too strong to ignore. Faced with the possibility of losing everything, he agreed to release any claim over Elara and to formally apologize to the allied territories for his actions. It was not the ending he had hoped for, but it was the only one available to him. With the matter finally settled, Kane and Elara stood once again at the top of the same stone steps where everything had begun. This time, there were no tense trumpets or forced ceremonies. Instead, there was calm and the quiet understanding between 2 people who had finally found their way back to each other. As the sun began to set behind the training grounds, Elara turned to Kane with a small, genuine smile. I'm ready to come home. Kane took her hand gently, careful and sure. You never truly left. Not really. Not where it counted. The bond between them, once faint and buried beneath fear and forced circumstances, pulsed steadily and warm, as if celebrating the fact that it had survived everything that had tried to break it. For the first time in 3 years, neither of them felt the need to hide anything from the other. News of what had happened between the territories spread far beyond their borders. Many spoke of it not as a story of war, but as a story of loyalty and patience. People admired how Kane had refused to give up searching for the truth, and how Alara had quietly endured hardship in order to protect innocent lives, even when it meant sacrificing her own happiness. In time, the two territories that had once stood on the edge of conflict found a new kind of peace, one built not on forced agreements, but on honesty and mutual respect. Alpha Draven's influence faded, and new leadership emerged in the north, one that valued fairness over fear. As for Kane and Alara, their bond only grew stronger with each passing season. They worked together to rebuild trust among their people, showing that even after great difficulty, it was possible to find understanding and unity. Years later, those who told the story of the Alpha King and his true mate often spoke of the balcony where the truth had first been revealed. It became a quiet reminder that even when circumstances try to force people apart, real bonds have a way of finding their way back to where they belong. And so, the story of Kane and Alara became one that was remembered not for the conflict it involved, but for the quiet strength, patience, and loyalty that ultimately brought two hearts back together, stronger than ever before.